Hello, you guys, and welcome back to the podcast and welcome Whitney Alexandra. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
I'm so excited. I know we were just talking about it, but I'm like, for those that aren't watching, Whitney is in like this beautiful Tulum looking like villa. I'm like, I know you're in Tulum taking the winter off, and I'm like, I think that just made me even more excited to like learn from you. Cause what a like flex and way to start out the podcast is like Whitney takes the winters off and goes and lives in Mexico.
Ah, Well, just to be fair to everyone listening, I am taking the winter off from wintering. I still love to work. So it's
Ooh.
a work relocation.
Oh, I love a work relocation for you. I'm like, that's gonna be on my mood board for 2025 is a winter
Yeah,
relocation.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
Absolutely. But for those that don't know you yet, could you give us a little intro on yourself?
Sure. So I'm a high performance coach. I work mainly with women entrepreneurs. So I'm helping them scale from, let's say, six figures over the seven-figure mark. But my whole thing, I know people hear high performance and they're like, oh, this woman's going to make me work so hard and hustle, and I don't have the energy for that. And that is the complete opposite of how I like to work. So I'm so much more about doing things that you desire and really like filling your time with creative things and still making all of the money that you want while you work the hours that you desire to. So you can have it all. This is, I think, an episode about having exactly what you want.
Oh, I love that. And I'm like very on par with like my audience and what we love talking about here. So how long have you been doing this? How did you like tell us a little bit about how you got started?
I think I had the boringest start, to be honest with you. Like basically I started working for this accounting firm and they were all lovely people, but I started working really closely with all of the leaders in this firm to like build their profile and build their business and really coaching them on how they could build a successful portfolio in whatever industry they were wanting to see themselves as an expert in. And so when I think about where my start came, it was then, and that was 20 years ago. So I spent a good portion of the first 10 years really working behind the scenes in corporate. And then my dream job kind of fell apart. And that's how I started as an entrepreneur, starting to work with hundreds of entrepreneurs. So I love what I do. I love working with women entrepreneurs. I think it's such a unique challenges that we have in scaling, in running businesses, in managing, the complexities of families and dynamics of, feminine and masculine, all of those things that a performance coach can really help with.
So, when you say performance coach, can you tell us like exactly what the definition of that is? Because I know there's like so many different types of coaches. There's so many more getting introduced to the space right now. I think we're in like a really exciting time for coaching. Can you tell us a little bit about like your niche?
Yeah, absolutely. So I view performance coaching as kind of like a goal coach, right? What are you capable of? What do you desire? And let me help you reach that goal. And for me, I work with a lot of women entrepreneurs, but the work that we do extends far beyond like the constraints of your business, right? It's sort of how you do everything is how you're going to do this one thing as well. And so we spend a lot of time working on the business as a priority, but then you'll find a lot of the performance coaching goes beyond to things like confidence and how you view money in the rest of your life, right? Where are you settling? Where are you self-sabotaging? What limiting beliefs do you have about what's possible for you? And so it's really exciting for me because you get to set the goal and I help push you to reach that goal or expand what you think is possible beyond maybe a goal that you set that was achievable, which is like such a trigger word for me. I have an allergic reaction to that. But that's how I view high performance. It's like, let's get clear on what your goals are, and then let me help you exceed them.
Amazing. And I know you mentioned money and money mindset, and that was one of the things I was so excited to talk to you about because you have your magic money math system, which I love all things systems and strategy and like data. I think it is not talked about enough in the space. And so it's like, as soon as I saw that word, I was like, oh, we have to talk to it. Like, we have to talk about this. I know my audience will love it as well because I cannot shut up about systems. So, talk to us a little bit about like what that system is, even before we dive into like how it works.
Yeah, so my clients started calling it magic money. And I have to go back to them and tell them, no, no, it's real money. It's just we're thinking about money in a different way, right? And so oftentimes, we put out these vibes into the universe. They're like, okay, I want to sell 10,000 more dollars, or I want to sell a new client or something like that. And so that sale will come through. The way that we count things as cash versus sales sometimes can be so different. And at times they can really prevent you from seeing that you're making incredible strides in your business. So as an example, I have a lot of creative business owners that I work with, and a few of them are photographers. And so it's pretty common in the photography field to say, okay, I sold this client, we have this session fee, and so I'm today accepting this deposit for the session fee, but every client that I have buys from me, and every client buys two or three or $4,000 worth of photographs, right? So technically, you sold $4 or $5,000. You just haven't received all of it yet. And so just even reframing it in your mind has helped so much, because I think often we think cash coming in, okay, I need more cash, I need more cash. When if you just continue to sell more, then the cash and the sales catch up to one another. But it can be pretty easy to have that first $100,000 month when you're focused on selling and seeing what you're actually selling, seeing the true capacity of what you're selling, right? And so that's really where I try and get people to expand, because if you can sell 100,000, why can't you receive 100,000 in cash or 50,000 in cash? Why can't people prepay for something? Right. And
Mm.
so it starts to sort of deconstruct some of the things that our minds start to adopt either in the industry or just ourselves as what's fact and what's fiction. And so for me, this like blows the lid off of like what's possible and just really leads to this limitless way of viewing the world.
So are you saying, I wanna make sure I understand properly. You're saying don't focus on the cash as much as focus on the selling?
I think focus on both. I
Mm.
always say, like, let's have a cash goal and let's have a sales goal. And I think one of the big money blocks that most women entrepreneurs deal with is visibility, right? And visibility and sales are so closely linked. It's your ability to say, like, hey, here's what I'm offering, here's how much it is. Do you want to have a conversation? And sales is love. Providing your service is love in whatever impact you're making in the world. And so I always encourage people to be capturing both
Mm.
and really, challenging what's possible for one or the other.
How can you kind of work on your visibility? Would you say that's like the first step in working towards like breaking these plateaus on like selling and cash flow? Would you say visibility is like the number one thing to kind of break through first?
It's a really important thing. I think where I always love people to start is to think about some of those constraints, right? So typically we're thinking, okay, what did I do last year or last month? And let that be a prediction of what I'm going to do this month, which sounds very practical, right? And listen, I'm a very practical person, but there's nothing about money that is practical. It's all energy and how visible you are and the offers you have and the way that you sell certainly is going to encourage more money to come your way. And so one of the things I really love people to start with is just expanding what's actually possible for them. Thinking, okay, if you're never reaching a $10,000 a month, sometimes the goal is just too low for you.
Mm.
Sometimes it's not energetically aligned with what you're really meant to be selling, right? I know people who are brilliant at selling big ticket items and can't sell a $200 product, right?
Mm.
It's just not aligned with the energy and the way they want to show up in the world. And so I always encourage people, like, if you haven't reached that goal, double it, double the goal, or do some sort of healthy stretch, right? And in this creative exercise, what I love about it is you're challenging your mind to say, okay, forget about 10,000. If we wanted to do even more, what would need to be possible? Who would I need to be to receive that goal? What would I need to offer? Because typically, what's getting you to this one place isn't going to get you to the next. And so, I love people to challenge what's possible for them and to give themselves that creative space to come up with a new offer or come up with something that could help them reach that bigger goal.
I love that, and I'm like, that was such a wake-up call for me because I never sell less than when I do small courses. Like, I always have this thought of, like, "Let me do, like, a really quick master class so that it's, like, easily accessible and people can get in there." And it never sells out, like, never. Those are always the worst launches we ever have, whereas it's so much easier to sell big ticket items for some reason. They come, like, so much more naturally, the clientele is so much better, and more people wanna invest in something higher ticket than, these, like, small master classes that I do. And granted, so I've kind of, like, found this rhythm of doing freebies so that people can have a way of, like, finding my work accessible while also still having my bigger ticket items, but I love that idea that, like, sometimes it's just not energetically aligned to be selling, like,
Mhm.
smaller things. It might just not be what your audience is looking for.
Totally. And I had one year, this was a few years back, where I thought, same thing. I want to make this really accessible program that people can join, have a performance coach sort of in your back pocket. And so weekly calls, like, listen, I'm not telling anyone to do this model, but like weekly calls, I think it was something like $97 a month, right? It was like insanely low. And I think I had 5 people join. They hardly attended. There was so much value there. And I think sometimes, especially as creative business owners, we're like, why is no one signing up? It must mean because, this isn't good enough, or this isn't or the right offer, or blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, I'll have another month where I can sell $250,000 with ease.
Mm.
So it is exactly that. It's that energetic alignment. Now I have clients that are like, please bring back that old offer, Whitney. Right? But it is true. It's like so much of it is what we're aligned for, what we're available for, and how we view the world and our work.
Mm. Can we, like, dive into that more? Because I think of breaking past 100K is, I think, one of the easiest barriers to break through. Like, once you've got your business up and running, 100K, it's not easy, let me be clear for anyone listening, it's not easy. But you can hustle your way to 100K if you have to.
Yep.
And I don't suggest it, but I'm like, "But you can." And, like, I think that's how a lot of us break past the initial 100K mark, and then we work on systemizing and strategizing to then make that money in an easier way without the hustle. But breaking from, like you mentioned, the six-figure mark to the seven-figure mark, you can't hustle your way there. There's not
No.
enough time in the day. Like, you're not getting to 7 figures through hustling, it's gonna be systems and strategy. So, what's kind of like your first take to, let's say someone's making 100K or a couple 100K and they just are stuck there? What's usually like the problem that you see happening to keep them at that plateau?
Like, typically, you'd see them just as what you described, thinking I need to do more of the same to get to the next level. I also see a lot of like copycat pieces of, okay, this person is doing that. Maybe that's what I need to do to be successful. And there's an example I love in my industry. There's a really wonderful woman who's a performance coach. She hosts a call at 6 a.m. every single day. And listen, like, that is not the model for me. If I believed that's what it would take for me to be successful, ain't gonna happen. right? And
Yeah, I'm
so
like,
I
"That's not for me."
yeah, no. And listen, like she could be telling all of the secrets of the universe, and I'm just not going to be there for it. And so I think it really is having that inner sort of compass of what do you desire, building something that's unique to you. Like you said, breaking out of this sort of expectation that, okay, if I just take on a little bit more or do more of the same, or find a faster way. This is also one thing I find is like maybe there's a better way to deliver all of that stuff. Nope, probably not. It probably will take like a whole retool of your systems and your strategy and probably some of your offers too, right? And so I think that's really when business owners need to be more curious about how they can scale, how they can add more impact while they're adding that extra income to their business. I also
Mm,
think it's too easy for people to say, like, okay, let me hire 5 more people and then I'll get my time back, which is not actually how the equation works,
mm.
right?
Can we talk a little bit more about, like, you said something like focusing on your impact while bringing in more income. What exactly does that mean? Like, what does that look like in a tangible way?
Yeah, I just think we're all here with our gift to share with the world, the impact we want to make, unique gifts, unique services that we have. And you know, there might be a whole crowd of Me Too people that are out there right now copying, you know, what works for others. I really think this is an opportunity for people to go inwards and think about their own unique selling features, their own way of diversifying their business, their greatest gifts, and then finding a way to deliver that to more people. And
Mm,
it might be, as you described, through free workshops. It might be through group training. It might be that your greatest gift is these one-on-ones that you host with people, and maybe the price point needs to align better, you know, with the value that you're providing. So I think it can happen in a lot of ways. Typically, I would see people moving from sort of that one-to-one operation to one-to-many, adding a group, adding a membership, adding, you know, other self-serve type options. So those are some really common strategies that you would see versus just let me take on 5 more one-on-one clients, which
mm.
we don't want you to do.
Yeah, I'm like, there's only so much one-on-one that you can do.
Yeah,
When it comes to, like, I love doing the introspection on, like, what are you bringing to the table that's different? What are you bringing to the table that's your own unique gift? For someone that's listening and is like, "I have no idea." Like, I have no clue what my
yeah.
gift is. I have no idea what I bring to the table that other people don't. Where do you suggest they begin with that introspection?
I always think it's that most obvious thing. It's the thing that people come to you for. It's the thing, even if you don't, I think typically what happens is we know what our gifts are, right? We know what they are, but we don't know how to monetize them. I think often that's what happens is like, I know that my greatest gift is helping people expand. I can have a conversation with them and they are expanded to think differently, show up differently, feel differently about what's possible. But if you were to say, like, how do you put a price on expansion? Like, it's priceless, right? And so I think sometimes we get stuck on how to monetize something. I also think you probably overlook some of your zone of genius. So it's really, you know, spending some of that time, even crowdsourcing, right? Why do clients hire you? Why do your friends come to you? What unique things are you doing that others in the market just don't don't do, right? I think often it's those small gifts that are have a really big impact.
Mm. And how can you, like, start practicing those? Like, do you suggest practicing those and bringing them forth in, like, a free way first or going straight into paid offerings? Because I know you mentioned, like, yeah, it's easy to get really hung up on, like, how do I monetize this? So do you suggest just
Yeah.
not monetizing it in the beginning?
No, no, I think that's one of the I think that's definitely a money block where it's like, will people pay for this?
Mm.
And I think when you're putting out something that is aligned energetically for like the greatest good of people, then of course there will be money that flows back to you. What I love to do, often if I'm making like a pivot in my business or I want to try something, I will take existing clients that I have and I will use it on them first. I'll use it on me, obviously, first, but I'll also start implementing it with clients so that I can make tweaks. I can see, oh, this is how I would modify it for this circumstance or this type of person. And so I think having some of those real life examples can often like give us the confidence that we need to be able to set a price tag for it. But certainly, like if you want to go and host something free, I think that's beautiful too. I think where we often get stuck is not monetizing our gifts because they come really easy to us.
Mm. Yeah, how do you like I think that comes from like guilt almost. And I have this conversation a lot with like coaching clients or even just people through social media where I'm like, we've been so trained that we have to hate our jobs, that we feel really guilty earning money when it's enjoyable.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's it's crazy and it like it's such a subconscious thing. So how do you like work with that often where you're seeing people like carry guilt from making money off of things that they love? And if so, like how do you kind of break through that?
So everyone has like a million and one subconscious money beliefs, right? They're usually not yours. You
Mm,
usually pick them up. They're old stories, experiences, there's usually not much fact to them, but somehow we absorbed them into our subconscious and now they're running the show. And so a lot of the work that I do with clients is about going into the subconscious mind to rewire the way that they think about wealth, to understand where the money blocks came from, or fear of success came from, or these feelings of not being worthy enough, right? All of those different types of beliefs, we're going into the subconscious mind and really like getting to the root, the cause, and the reason for it, and then rewiring the way that you think about it moving forward. And so often what happens is you have this little light bulb moment of, oh, that's why I do it this way, or that's why I never send the invoice, or that's why I'm afraid to charge or be more visible, or that's why I keep blocking myself from making more money than my husband, right?
mm,
It's like all of these things. I always feel like you could do this exercise every single month and remove another money block because we just have so many of them. But definitely going in and sort of doing some of that internal work to understand, what is the belief? Whose is it? Right? Is it mine
mm,
or someone else's? Is it true? Or was this my experience at 5 years old when I lost the $5 bill? Who
mm.
knows? Right? We carry all of this stuff through our life and we make it mean something as adults or in our business. And it doesn't have to be like that.
I love that. I'm like, everyone write down those questions and work through them. And then once you've identified your money blocks, and let's say you kind of gotten to the root of like, okay, like I've learned this from this, it's not mine. How do you start rewiring for more of a positive approach to money?
Yeah. So if you're one of my clients or you're purchasing one of my subconscious recordings, you can easily do that, right? And just it'll sort of guide you through that meditation. If you're just having a sheet of paper and looking at some of these beliefs, you can simply just write it down, figure out, is it mine or someone else's? Where did it come from? Is it true or not? And then most of them aren't true. So we're going to skip to that part, right? It's not true. Or if it was true, it was because, right? So I always like thinking like it's not true because is a really powerful statement. Like I'm bad with money. Well, that's not true because
Mm,
I've done all of these wonderful things, or I've managed to save, or I've shown myself these opportunities from the past where I was really good with money. Okay, that's not true. So, what is the new belief that I want to replace that with? And then coming up with something new that when you have that moment where the inner critic is being really mean, you can simply replace it with a better thought. And I always
mm,
encourage people to write it, to see it, and to say it. And so having all of those systems being used, and also like you're hearing yourself say those positive beliefs to yourself, which also plays a really big impact in retaining it.
Yeah, do you have, like, favorite mantras or, like, statements that you recommend people use?
I think it's whatever is exciting for you,
Mm,
right? So when I'm working with a client, we're doing like custom recordings, which is really fun because all of these like wild phrases will come up, like money flows to me like, water through a faucet.
mm.
I'm a money magnet. All the money in the universe is attracted to me. And so I think coming up with something where it's like, what do you desire? How do you desire to feel about it? Is the most powerful phrase that you're going to come up with.
Ooh, I love that. I'm like, do you recommend, like, recording yourself saying these things, or how do you suggest people, like, put these into practice?
I think just having them written, having them somewhere where you can continue to kind of affirm them. If you're someone who wants to record yourself and listen to them, that's also great too. So it can be I am, or it can be you are, right? So you listening to yourself, tell yourself you are a
Mm.
money magnet is also really powerful too.
I know, I'm like, when I don't have my cold, I'll have to get in there and
Yeah.
do some recordings. Oh my gosh, well, this has all been amazing, Whitney. If we like, as we close out, is there 3 actionable steps that you suggest people take if they're wanting to break their money mindset or work on being more visible or just work on their mindset in general? What are 3 things that they can kind of take from this episode and go and tangibly, actionably do?
Okay, first thing, I would love them if they are stuck at a money plateau, a sales plateau, or even a passion plateau. That's what I call it when you're just not excited anymore about what you're doing. I would love for you to like really get expansive and think about, how might you double it or how might you shift to something that you're more passionate about selling.
Mm,
So that step number one. Step number two, I think make that big sheet of beliefs. What are all of those thoughts that you or beliefs that you have about money? They can be good, they can be bad, they can be neutral. There's no judgment when you capture it, but just write everything down, everything that you think about money, and work through those steps to reframe them and put a positive spin on it. And I think the third action I'd love to leave people with is dream bigger, right?
mm.
I think so often we spend our time thinking about what's achievable. And I would love for you just to know that everything you desire is available to you. And so, dream big and take action in a big way.
Oh, thank you so much, Whitney. This has been amazing, and I'm so excited for people. I'm so excited for me to have some actionable items to like go home and write down. I always say, I'm like, never write them down if you're driving. I know people are always listening to these in the car, but I'm like, wait till you get home, journal them out. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing all of this.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yes, so we'll obviously link everything in the show notes, but can you let everyone know where they can find you on the internet and learn from you?
Yes, so I love to hang out on Instagram. Send me a message or come follow along at Whitney.Alexandra. And my website has lots of little freebies, including a $1 million mindset recording that people can download as well.
Ooh, amazing. I will be heading straight there. Thank you so much, Whitney. And thank you guys for listening. And we will see you next time.